We're going to take a look at a tune I already have the original up by Fred Neil. This is, of course, Everybody's Talkin', and we're going to take a look at the way Harry Nilsson rearranged it, or Harry and his cohorts, into a little bit more driving song than Fred's, which was a little folkier campfire version. And Harry, by putting in a couple of guitars that were doing this kind of frantic picking, really gave the song a much more moving along character, which was perfect for how it got used in the movie Midnight Cowboy. It's usually used in scenes where, especially in the beginning, for a very long time, first 10, 15, 12, 15, 20, 30 minutes of John Voight's character being on a bus heading to New York and just kind of tooling along. So it makes great background for this. Of course, Harry was kind of bummed that they didn't choose one of his songs. Would have meant much more for him in royalties. Of course, from the same album that he had this on, he had one of his most famous songs, one that made a fortune for him when it was recorded by Three Dog Night. Anyway, it all comes around, works out. It sort of works out. We're going to talk about in this, if you want to hear Harry's original version, but it's pretty much the same one they rehashed for Midnight Cowboy in 1969. It's on his album called Aerial Ballet, which had mostly original tunes except for this, and came out in 1968. So, but what we're going to do in this is talk the chord progression. It's in a different key. It's in the key of E, whereas Fred's version was in the key of D. And but we're going to use a D shape. The D family of chords kind of moved into the E world, but keeping an alternating bass going down to the front while I'm using the sixth string, of course, because that's where E is. And we're going to talk about playing it in single time and getting it under control first, because and then when we look at it in double time, playing the bass notes as eighth notes, they have to go twice as fast. So it gets to be a little hectic down there. But first we'll take a look at the chord progression. But if you've seen my lesson on Fred's version, it's pretty much the same. You just have to transpose it to E with a few little variations, but nothing too drastic. And then we'll take a look at playing it double time, relatively straight, and then syncopated. Where the accents come on off beats. So most of this is going to be talking about the right hand in this song and a couple different things you can do to get various sounds in Nilsson's version of Everybody's Talkin'. What we have as far as the chords go is most of the chords alternate. You stay on the same chord a lot of times, and we just change the melody note back and forth between a couple of different notes, frequently just by half steps. And we're going to be in the key of E, playing an E5 chord, a couple of different E5 chords. Now a 5 chord is just a chord that doesn't have a third in it. So for our E, a simple way to play E5 is to play the low E, the 6th string open, the 4th fret E, the 4th string E, the B on the 3rd string at the 4th fret, an E at the 5th fret, and then we could play the top E if we wanted, or we don't have to. And if I wanted to strum this, so all we have in this chord is E's and B's. As long as we have only E's and B's, we're playing E5, or also can be known as an E power chord. If you're playing an E power chord, we just have the E on the 6th string and the B on the 5th. Now if I wanted to strum this chord, what I would do is use my first finger to bar both the 5th and 4th strings, and then we've got the big old rich sound of an open 5th, nothing but 1s and 5s, roots and 5s. So we're going to play our E chord like this, and this is really kind of derived from the D family of chords. If you look at a D chord here, including the open 4th string, and made a bar out of that, we'd move it up a whole step, put an E in the bass on the 4th string, maybe a B on the bass on the 5th string, and then we could play, this is the opening chord, by the way, to Kodachrome. What we hear in there is the D shape moved up into the E family. But as far as Everybody's Talkin' goes, all of our E's are going to be played with these two notes as the power chord, and then moving melody notes. If we have the E on top, we're going to call it E5, and in the tablature I've got that labeled as E5 E, because we're also going to play an E5 with a B on the top, where we're just going to let the 2nd string be open and only play the same 4 strings, the 6th, the 4th, the 3rd, and the 2nd. But as the melody, we have melody notes moving on the second string. And it's going to be moving back and forth for a while between E and D sharp, and the D sharp gives us an E major 7. Well, before you tackle the speedy version of this, you should be really familiar with just general Travis picking and keeping. Now I'm just playing that E5 chord where I've got my 2 E's in the bass, I've got a B on the 3rd string and an E up on the 2nd string. And one of the first finger picking pattern I teach anybody, it's used in Dust in the Wind and all kinds of other things, is very simply this. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Bass notes on the 4 beats, these would be quarter notes, and then a pinch on beat 1, 1, a finger on the and of beat 2, and then another finger on the and of beat 3. And just by changing the order of these strings, or maybe even adding in the 1st string, you should be able to keep that pattern going where we've got a pinch on 1 and then extra fingers or extra strings played in between 2 and 3 and between 3 and 4. Well, we had in the single time version, we have this very simple pattern: pinch, thumb, finger, thumb, finger, thumb. And if I go back to the order of using my index finger after the pinch, we have that. And if we were to play, all we have to do to really get this happening in double time, it's going to sound, I know it sounds easy, it's not, but is get your thumb going twice as fast. Now that was just this. And I'm moving, of course, back and forth between the E5 and the E major 7. So the first thing you need to do is get to where you can do that very quickly.